Welcome to the Art of Lifting podcast. Today I am joined by Carl. Did you want to just introduce yourself a little bit?
All right. So, hey guys, my name is Calle Johansson. I am 24 years old, powerlifter, and a full-time coach.
I don't think I realised you were that young. I know you're not too far out of the juniors, but I didn't realise you were still 24. How old did that make you when you won Worlds? 22?
Yeah, but I'm turning 25 this year, so we could say them.
So were you technically still a junior the year you won Worlds?
Yeah, correct. I was.
That's crazy. So we're going to start there. I think I've heard you on other podcasts before, and like you've kind of spoken through how you found powerlifting and stuff quite a lot, which is usually how I start these conversations. But I'm sure most people listening to this have probably also binged any other powerlifting podcasts and heard the story and stuff before. So I think if we start from where you won Worlds, so 2023. I still remember this because this is one of the first Worlds that, like, as a fan of the sport, like I've always loved powerlifting, but I feel like this year everything kind of just leveled up, and I can remember it was like 11 p.m. here. I was sat in bed and I was just watching the end of your deadlift session, and I remember my jaw just dropping, and I like slammed my hand down, and my boyfriend was nearly asleep next to me, and he had a heart attack because I was like, I can't believe this has happened. So you dethroned Taylor back in 2023, as did Tim. Now that it's been like 2 years, almost coming up to 2 years since that all happened, like looking back on it now, like do you still think back to that moment a lot? Like how does it feel now that you've had so much time pass?
So that competition is quite interesting, and like, of course, it was a very special moment to me. Like I don't think I have like spoken too much openly about this. But I usually think when I think back to that moment, it was like, it's probably one of the best and also most challenging things that I've ever been through. Like the aftermath of like what happened after the competition. Like, I got a lot of new recognition, new eyes on me. And with that came also a lot of, opinions and pressure. So I'd say I look back at that moment in sort of a way that I'm proud over what I did, but it was also like I know also what came after that too. So it's sort of like a mixed feelings with what happened that day. But yeah, of course, it was a special thing, and to be honest, I still can't quite believe like that actually happened. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to like fully grasp it in, because it's it was something very special.
I can only imagine like how it must feel. It almost maybe doesn't feel like it was even real in some ways, and like even again just going back to the live stream and like the celebration at the end of you pulling that final deadlift, and like didn't your coach have to drag you off so that you didn't get disqualified or whatever for like running into the crowd? Like it's one of those moments in life where it's like so surreal that it's happened, but I guess so much time has passed now, and obviously a lot's happened since then as well. It must also just feel like almost like a lifetime ago. So am I right in thinking, because you've not been to Worlds since then, you've since moved up a weight class, so that was in the 74s. Am I right in thinking you got injured again not long after that?
Yeah, so the reason for why I pulled out of last year was that I actually injured my back it was sometime in April, I think. And I went to a physiotherapist. I did everything I could to like rehab as quick as possible, but given the state that I was in, I realized that competing at Worlds that year probably wasn't realistic for me. I was having issues with just carrying out regular like everyday tasks, like going to the grocery store or carrying my own laundry basket down to like the laundromat. Like everything was filled with pain. So, let alone lifting a barbell. So yeah, I had to pull out of that competition, unfortunately. But yeah, this competition or this upcoming Worlds is the first time I'll be back on the international stage since then. So
Yeah. And you did Sheffield in 2024 as well, didn't you?
yeah.
Wait, that was just before the injury?
Yeah, right before the injury.
Yeah. So, I mean, how was the experience of Sheffield? Like, if you can even describe it.
That is also quite mixed, I'd say. And I don't think a lot of people know this, but I feel like it might be good for a lot of younger lifters to understand as well the pressure that comes with like being on a very high level of lifting. So although I'm really proud over that I got that far, leading up to that competition was probably one of the toughest periods I've ever been through. I is it okay if I delve into some like
Yeah, of
sensitive
course.
topics?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, whatever you're comfortable talking about.
Yeah. So during that, like, of course, Worlds happened, and I got a lot of new recognition. And I don't think I was quite used to having that much, or I wasn't prepared for like the outcome, like people having opinions about you, people speculating on what you're going to do next, people looking up to you. Like there was so much responsibility and um, just eyes on you that I wasn't quite prepared for. And that ended up with me actually putting a lot of pressure on myself that I hadn't really experienced before. Because in my previous competitions before 2023 Worlds, I was always sort of the underdog. And it was quite nice just to, like, work in the back and letting someone else take the pressure. You can just focus on what you can do. But all of a sudden, I felt like I had to bear the weight of mostly uh, my own expectations, but also others, and speculating where I'd be placed, if I'd be able to hit a world record or anything. And I know that leading up to that competition, I did something that I never was used to doing, and I don't know why I did this, but I started talking a bit about what I wanted to do, and that also put a lot of like unnecessary pressure on me. But throughout that period, I sort of lost the love for lifting because all of a sudden I felt like I'm not really doing this because I love the sport. I'm doing this to fulfill others and mostly my own expectations. And this is going to be a bit sensitive too. And I haven't really told anyone this, but like my very close friends. But I feel like this is a good opportunity to shine light on how it can be to be a high level lifter sometimes. I actually experienced a lot of issues with suicidal thoughts before Sheffield because the pressure got so bad that, I felt like if I don't reach my goals, I'd probably be better off not alive. And just the pressure itself also wanted me to just find a way to escape it. Um, and that was tough. It was really tough. But at the same time, it was, yeah, of course, it was a great opportunity. I don't take that for granted. I don't want people to like feel bad for me at all. I'm just trying to use this as an opportunity to shine light on how it can actually be sometimes. And it's not always just like, glitter and glamour. But yeah, it was a cool experience to be able to showcase like my strength. I didn't really get the result I wanted. And I do think that a little of that, of course, comes from like, me putting too much expectations on myself and being a bit too stressed out during that period. But yeah, a bit mixed, I'd say.
I think firstly, like, thank you for sharing all of that. And I do think actually it is really important to kind of talk about that side of things, because from an outside perspective looking in, and like you kind of mentioned, a lot of younger lifters that, seeing the growth of powerlifting, because I also think you won worlds at a time where powerlifting literally was skyrocketing. Like the number of views that year was probably so much higher than the year before, and it's obviously continued increasing. And you did kind of shoot to fame within our community. And I think a lot of people chase that sometimes, especially these new younger people coming into the sport. But like you kind of said there, like you can't prepare for that. And the pressure that comes with it, the pressure that comes with not being funny, like you beat Taylor Atwood at Worlds and you then went to Sheffield. Like that is so much pressure back to back. Like I think you were already a pretty well-known lifter, especially like you were known for your deadlift, right? Like your Instagram handle. And I just think it's a really important thing to point out that sometimes getting to the top isn't necessarily what you think it's going to be. And like you need to, like our sport's not new, but the popularity within our sport is new. There is no preparing for what happens when you get that popularity behind you as a lifter and your following grows like that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always a backside to the medal that you get. But yeah, of course, it was also, a bit a big dream of mine that came true whenever that happened at the World Championships. I don't really think too much about the fact that I beat Taylor, though. It was more about, me being able to stand on top of that podium, hearing the national anthem, and having my friends in the crowd cheering me on as well. And it was something, when after my first competition that I ever did in powerlifting, I told myself that I wanted to become the best in the world. And when I stood on top of that podium, I sort of realized that I had achieved that. So that was pretty big, or it was really big. It was probably one of the greatest moments I've ever been able to experience. But at the same time, it's not always sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
There can come a lot of like when you stand on top, like everyone's gonna chase after you, right?
Yeah.
And it's challenging to prepare for that moment, but you grow from it, you learn, and you get wiser. So although it was pretty hard to go through, I'm very thankful that I was able to get through it and experience it, because now I can shine light on how it is sometimes when you struggle with mental health, and being somewhat of an advocate.
I think it's one of those things as well, like you're chasing this dream of becoming the best in the world, and it's almost like once you hit that milestone, what's next? Like there is going to be this almost emptiness of, where do I go from here? Because in theory you just have to keep winning and keep winning, but in a sport that's not the most realistic thing. Like obviously you're still going to try, but yeah, you've reached this dream. Okay, what happens from here? Like there's that moment of elation, and I think people talk about it in other sports as well, like when you become a world champion in boxing or something, like you go backstage after and you're like, what now? Because you hit that milestone, that elation, like seeing you celebrate with your friends as soon as you pull that deadlift, and like that moment must have been like such an unbelievable high that there is going to be a low after it, right?
Absolutely. And it's like you touched upon as well, like what happens afterwards. Like there's only so far you can climb. So, and that was also something that was quite interesting to ask myself afterwards, like, what happens now? What do I want to do? But again, that's also what separates good athletes from great athletes, like being able to do it over and over again. And it is definitely something that I still aspire to do, but in another weight class whenever the time is in for it.
I think that's a nice segue to ask you, at what point did you decide to move up to the 83s? Was it because of injury, or were you just struggling to maintain 74?
So it was a combination of both. I'd say me being I don't think a lot of people know this, but I actually started out as an 83 kilo lifter in the beginning of my career, and I did my first year as a fairly light 83, and I cut down to become more competitive. But that was basically since 2020, I've been dieting, and as a 24-year-old man trying to keep yourself at a certain body weight, that is of course going to affect you physically and mentally. And I do think that a lot of me being in a constant caloric deficit while training hard and trying to maintain a high level as an athlete, that put a lot of strainage both physically and mentally. So even before the injury happened, I had decided that I need to go up after Worlds. Whatever happens, it's time to go up, because I'm not doing well mentally. I'm not doing well physically, in terms of I just felt exhausted all the time. And I did that decision for my own well-being. But then, of course, given that I injured myself during that prep, I decided to go up a bit earlier.
Yeah, I think it's what I had this conversation, it wasn't long ago, with someone else, and it was human first, athlete second, because you're not going to be a good athlete if you don't look after yourself as a person. And I think weight classes within our sport, that is something that a lot of people do kind of overlook. I filmed a video yesterday about when it might be time to move up a weight class, because I think that's something people really struggle with. And one of the things was, injury, your body, if you're not, even if your energy levels are low, if you're not recovering from your sessions, let alone if you're actually getting hurt, your body's probably just crying out for more fuel, more food, and just for you to just nurture it a little bit. And I think a lot of people get scared to move up a weight class because you see the total of the weight class above. Like for you now moving into the 83s, like not being funny, the 83s have just had this crazy surge. Well, like obviously you've got Perk in the 74s, they're still doing crazy numbers anyway, but that's another milestone you have to reach, another big increase on your total you have to hit to get back to where you were competitive wise. But actually, I'm sure your body is so thankful that you've moved up, and your progress is going to reap that as well. Like you are more likely to catch the 83s than you ever were to keep up with the 74s because you couldn't stay healthy at 74.
Exactly. You know, as you said, well-being first, athlete later. That, you know, that was the main reason for why I switched weight classes, because I did know that if I switch weight classes, there's probably going to be a year or two where I'm not as competitive as I was in the 74s. But what's more worth it? You know, being able to enjoy life and actually being happy in my everyday life, or suffering every day and not enjoying anything but being a competitive athlete. Like at the end of the day, we lift barbells. It's not the most important thing in the world. And of course, it's a big passion for a lot of people, including myself. And I structure my entire life around it. But you also got to realize that there's more to life than just lifting barbells. And you need to allow yourself to feel happiness in other aspects of life too. And yeah, my body has definitely thanked me for moving up.
So I'm assuming you do follow powerlifting quite closely, like as a fan. Like, do you watch all the big meets and things?
Not really. Like I of course you get it like on your social media and stuff, but since it's such a big part of my life in terms of my own like athlete career, and I work with a lot of I help lifters like full time. It's nice to get a break from it too. So of course I'll tune into like Sheffield and Worlds and stuff, but other than that, I try to take some distance from it, because I do think it's pretty good to have something else outside of just lifting that keeps you interested. Just so you don't like, I love lifting, but I don't want to burn out from it. So
Yeah.
I think it's important for variation too.
I actually think that's a really good thing. And I'm wondering if your injury is part of what taught you that as well, because I know I mean, it wasn't a super serious injury, but I got a back injury back in 2020 time. And at that moment, I thought like my world was ending because all I knew was powerlifting, powerlifting, powerlifting. And it made me realize, okay, no, you have to find other things that you enjoy, because one, like you kind of mentioned, burnout is a thing, but also like if you do get an injury that takes you out of powerlifting, you need to still enjoy your life. Like, yes, you can probably powerlift forever to an extent, but you still need other areas of your life that bring you fulfillment and enjoyment. And I think injury is a really good lesson in that. And I wondered if that's kind of where you learned that from.
Not this injury, but an injury I actually experienced for 2022 Euros. It was a lower back injury as well, and it took me out of lifting for a couple of months. And before that, lifting was my entire life. You know, it was the only thing I consumed on social media. I was identifying with powerlifting Calle, not just regular Calle. And what that injury taught me was, when you're like, I had to ask myself, when you're not lifting barbells, who are you? And I had to dig very deep to find other aspects of my life that I feel is like enjoyable. And, you know, I'm not just my results. I'm actually quite, you know, people in my surroundings like me for who I am as a person, not for who I am as a lifter. And of course, it's cool to be strong and be inspiring people by the weights that you lift. But I think a key aspect that I took away from that was that there's so much more to who I am that people enjoy than just lifting. And I felt like that took away some pressure for a certain like extent. And then of course Worlds happened. But up until that moment, I feel like I found very good balance in my life and was able to just enjoy things outside of lifting while still being a good powerlifter.
Yeah, of course. And I think that's another really important message for any younger lifters listening as well, because it's so easy to become more consumed in this sport once you first find it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's most of my life. You know, I work in it, I compete, like I do follow a lot of it on Instagram, but I also have to take time away it makes you a better lifter, it makes you a better coach if you still have your own life outside of it, I think. And I just think that's a really important message for anyone listening. With your coaching, so as you mentioned, you are a full-time coach as well now, and I know you've been coaching quite a long time. you were coaching before you won Worlds, weren't you? But I just wondered if you had quite a big surge, obviously, after that. Like, obviously, your name just grew in general. And I just wondered, like, how you're finding balancing coaching with, and like the growth of your coaching with your training.
So, yeah, there was a lot of people reaching out to me for coaching after that. But at the time, I was still working as a personal trainer at the Swedish Sports Institute in Stockholm. So that took a lot of time because I did train like other athletes outside of just powerlifting. So I didn't really accept too many people at that point. But then I decided to go full time last April, and since then, yeah, like it's been a very interesting road. So like, because it's one thing to coach, let's say you have like 10 people on your roster, it's still manageable to manage that while still living your like own separate life. But then when I decided to grow my roster, it became like I got to learn a lot about how it is to actually be a business owner. And I'm really grateful that I took that path, because it definitely wasn't easy. Because I thought that, I have a fairly big name now. I could probably take on a couple of athletes and I wouldn't have to go anywhere to work. I could work from home. I can work whenever. You think of all of these like benefits, but then when when reality hits in and it's like, okay, you have 30 plus people reaching out to you at once, needing like technique advice or program adjustments or just talking about their day, because people are just humans and need venting too. It's a lot of responsibility. And I got to learn a lot about how it is to actually be a leader, and to how much influence you actually have on people when you help people with their training, because it's such a big and central part of many people's lives, especially powerlifters, because yeah, most powerlifters are just like, that's their main hobby, right? That's like what makes them happy. And you actually have a way to impact their happiness in both ways. So, and that could be scary to the beginning, but yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot the question, but I've learned a lot, at least, about how it is to be like a leader and how it is to be like a full-time coach.
Yeah, to be fair, I think you answered my question. My question was kind of just around how you've found balancing the growth, obviously, of your coaching. Also, just to pick up on as well, like I really like that you said there about how, it is a responsibility. You are almost like a leader in a lot of ways, and you are responsible for people's happiness, in that powerlifting is such a big part of so many people's lives. And I think most coaches have this moment where they suddenly realize, like, these people are choosing me to be responsible for their, it is a hobby, but it's a lot more than just a hobby to a lot of people as well. And I think that's a really important thing for coaches to kind of realize and understand, because it is such a big deal. Like, when you think about who you hire as a coach, there's a lot of thought that goes behind that. And then these people are choosing to trust you with that journey. And that is a really big thing. I was also really interested to hear that you started off as an in-person trainer as well, because I always find it interesting when people do that, and how you've found switching. Are you completely online now?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've taken a lot of those skills from working with people in person into the online space? Obviously, a lot of online coaches only ever work online. I personally started in person as well, and I am so glad that I did, because I think that gave me so much experience that is so invaluable to help me with what I'm looking for in people's videos, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing that I realized when I started taking on more online coaching was that it's so much harder to instruct people behind a screen, because when you're in person, you can touch them, you can adjust them, and you can get out your, like, I'm a very like, I like doing stuff in person. That's the way I operate the best. So making that switch from like being able to actually go in and like, no, you need to move this and you need to do that, to having to explain that, and in English too, because that's not my main language. It was very challenging. But the main thing that I take away from the in-person training is like the person-to-person interaction, right? Like, you're not just helping someone to lift your it is a big investment. Like you said, like, people just don't pick any coach. They spend a lot of time like searching, like, okay, is this person right for me? Why why is he right for me? Is his training philosophy something that I like agree with? Who is he as a person? Does he seem like he takes responsibility? Does he, take pride in his work? There's so much that goes into that. It's not just like your any other product that you can just like discard. Like it is a big commitment. So I would say the main thing that I take away is the communication and the importance of building a relationship with the person that you're helping, because it's training. It can be something sensitive to a lot of people, and like I've experienced myself, some people do like the way that they operate as a lifter, they take into who they are as a person. So it is very sensitive. It's not just lifting for some people. So yeah.
Yeah, I also think with powerlifting as well, and when you've worked with quite a lot of different people, you like start to notice the confidence that people gain from a sport like powerlifting. It completely goes into their everyday life as well. Like it gives them more confidence just walking in the workplace and things like that as well. And I think, I'm sure you have this as well. Like when you like having a conversation with your client, maybe just about their general life, and you suddenly notice the difference from when you first started versus now. Like that's such a rewarding part of the job.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've had a lot of athletes telling me that the things that I've helped them to develop has had a very positive carryover into other aspects of their life. It could be, for example, not overthinking on a lift, just trusting what you've built up together, and just executing. That could be something that you can take into like another part of your life, like for example in work. Let's say you have a certain task at work that you dread because you feel like you just overthink it, right? But then you realize like, okay, I've actually gotten taught this and I've done this a million times, so there's no need to overthink it. Like I get to experience that a lot, and I'd say that's, for me at least, that's like the thing that is the most rewarding for me when coaching people. It's cool to make people strong, don't get me wrong, but being able to make that like in-person change in people, it's like you're changing people. It's amazing. It's you're more than just a trainer. You're like, you can become a mentor for people if you do it right.
Absolutely. We will kind of transition back to the athlete chat in a second, but while we're on the topic of coaching, I don't know if you have spaces right now, but if you do, or if anyone's interested, how can they reach you for coaching?
Thank you. So you can either contact me on my personal Instagram, that's deadlift.miyagi, or you could go to my business account, which is VGA Performance, or you could hit me up on like my form in my website. But yeah, you could just write me on Instagram, or you could shoot me an email. So that's where you can reach me.
Perfect. We will transition back to athlete now. Firstly, Deadlift Miyagi. I love that Instagram name so much. Obviously, your deadlift was a big weapon back when you were a 74. Deadlift typically is the one that has kind of the most changes when you go up a weight class. Is it still, would you still describe it as a bit of a weapon? I know your other training has looked strong too, but have you found your deadlift leverage is hard to adjust to as you've gained weight, or has it kind of just been the same?
It's been very tough to adjust, actually. So I've gained like 10 kilos of body weight. That makes a difference in your positioning. So it's been a bit of a weird thing to work around. Like I'm of course a lot stronger than I was when I was a 74, but it doesn't feel as natural. So I'm still in the middle of having to work around how to make my deadlift feel as good as it was when I was a bit lighter. But yeah, it's special because I could tell that I have more of a tendency to, for example, rip my thumb, because the way that I pull against my quads like makes my thumb stick against my legs because I have so much more muscle mass there now. And that's just not something you think about when you choose to go up a weight class. It's like, oh, I'll go up and then I'll be stronger and everything. Like, nah, technically you have more muscle mass, but you being able to perform the lift is so different. And I'm definitely physically a lot stronger, but skill wise, it's like, it's just you could say it's a bit awkward right now for deadlifts, but I'll figure it out eventually.
With the weight gain, was it quite a quick thing, or has it been a really slow, steady gain?
So I went from 75 to 81 in 1.5 months. So it was pretty quick.
I think
But I
that's the
would,
sign your body wanted to go up.
yeah, and I would say that of course it's probably not just muscle mass, it was probably like water weight too, just from that initial, like, you get rid of so much physical stress by just allowing yourself to eat whatever you want. Uh and I have been up towards like 79 before, athlete, quote unquote 74, like off season. So it's not like my body wasn't like used to being up there. So the first initial, like, getting up to 80 was very easy. Then it took a bit longer time to get up to like, 83, 84, somewhere around there. So
And
yeah.
how do you feel your squat and bench have adapted now that you've gained the weight as well? Because typically they are the ones that see the best response from the weight gain.
hmm Yeah, for squat and bench, I'd say for squat, the more I get into the 83s, the more I have to adjust my leverages. I had to like widen out my stance. I could stand a bit narrower before, like for example in the autumn. But I realized that the more I gain, like the more muscle mass I gain, I need to like widen out the stance. The bench press I haven't really felt anything odd there. I've just been able to press more. Maybe trust my brute strength a bit more, I'd say. Like I don't really have to think too much about the technique part. I can just, trust my muscle mass, which is great. So it actually feels good to feel like you're lifting with strength and not just purely like positioning and technique. So yeah.
No, I think that's really interesting about the bench press, because I do think it's like, they obviously, people tend to say like the heavier you are, the more you can bench, but I think it's just that confidence of, you feel bigger in yourself, so you have that confidence to push bigger loads. Like even if your technique and stuff hasn't really changed, your leverages haven't particularly changed for bench, like it's just that confidence factor that comes with feeling bigger in yourself. Has your training changed a lot? Because I feel like I remember on a podcast, I don't know if you were on one with Joey or if Joey was possibly talking. Are you still coached by Joey?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I vaguely remember you only squatting once a week, and I don't know if that was because of your old back injury. But are you still doing quite a low frequency there, or as you've gotten bigger and you're recovering more, are you finding you can do more volume and frequency?
We've actually doubled my frequency on bench and deadlift, so I do it twice a week on both now. And a lot of that has to do with, since I have more energy and like calories to work with into my recovery, like I can train harder, which is really nice. When I was 74, I was so fragile. Like I remember every time we tried putting in like squatting twice a week, pulling twice a week, I'd immediately feel uncomfortable. My technique would break down, and I wouldn't be up well. So it feels good to actually be on a more somewhat like traditional split, and it allows you to, for me, like if I only squat once a week, there's a lot of room for error if you feel like something is off with your technique, because then you have to wait another 7 days until you can practice. So it just feels good to have more opportunities and actually like solidify your technique and just make you like it just makes me personally think less about it, because I know that if something feels off on Tuesday, I get to practice it on Friday again, and there's no need to stress about it.
Yeah, I know I've used you as an example before with clients, that I've got a couple of clients that have really low frequency on squat just because they are more prone to like niggles and things. And I've used you as an example so many times, especially with now, like with someone like Agatha squatting 6-7 days a week. And it's like, you don't have to do more to get stronger. It's so dependent from person to person. I'm kind of curious, like as a coach as well, like have you seen much around how Agatha trains? I know you said you don't particularly follow powerlifting too closely, and I just wondered on your thoughts of like this high SBD frequency.
I mean, she can do it. So, but yeah, I have no idea how she manages that. I would break in an instant. But it's good that you say that just because someone is doing high frequency doesn't mean that it will translate well into you, because it's so personal. So just because your favorite powerlifter is doing it doesn't mean that you should do it. But yeah, it's very interesting that she can manage that. But I mean, she's strong, so I can't really say too much about it.
No, and I think like you are a good example there of like you were progressing well on 1 day a week. Obviously, with the weight class and everything, things changed, but you became a world champion squatting 1 day a week. So it can be done. And I think also, if you can get away with doing less, why would you not want to get away with doing less, right?
Yeah.
Why go to the gym 6 days a week for long sessions when you don't have to?
Exactly. More time for recovery. So as long as you're confident in your technique, there's no need to do more. If you're progressing, that is.
Yeah, of course. So your total now is in the 800s, I believe, looking at your open
Yes.
powerlifting. So your, when was that? December time you hit 805. Was that Swedish
Mhm.
nationals or was that a local meet?
It was, I don't know if you guys have this, but it's team nationals.
I think Alba described this to me before. She was telling me about it. I had a podcast with her not long ago. Don't like, is it gym, like teams within gyms compete against each other?
Yeah, correct. So we have this, I don't know how it works in for you guys, but in Sweden we have these things called like the series windows. So there's like competition periods, you could say. So we have four of those every year, and each period you can collect points for your team and you as a person lifter as well, of course. But the more points, like, so you need to collect points every period, and if you reach this goal amount, you can qualify for team nationals, and then you can compete against other lifters on GL. So it's like you're a combined GL as a team. So I wasn't really peaked for that, and it was more like a fun thing. But yeah, that was when I hit that.
No. And it's a good total to be at heading into obviously Worlds this year. I don't know how much, if you'd want to talk too much about like what you're thinking for Worlds and also just about like the general competition itself, but like 805 a couple of years ago would have been podium on the 83s. Obviously there's been a bit of a surge with the 83s, and I was just going to ask you kind of how you're feeling obviously going into, like, obviously it's your first Worlds as an 83, like it's your first Worlds after 2 years, like you're probably not thinking I need to win this, but how does it kind of feel seeing the rise of the 83s, then obviously coming into Worlds this year?
Oh, it's a bit special. Like, this is the first time in a very long while that I'm not considered like a favorite. But I do think that the timing could have been better for myself, because it allows me to just rework that mentality of I just need to go in and focus on what I can do, and whatever happens happens, and just rebuild like the enjoyment of being in competition prep, because the last couple of preps have been very tough and not enjoyable at all. So it's I see this as sort of an opportunity to just practice good habits for myself, being kind to myself, during prep. And even though, let's say might not hit a number on a certain day, like it's not the end of the world. Just being less emotionally attached to numbers per se. But yeah, it's been an amazing rise in the competition, in the weight class, and it's cool to be a part of that. Like, of course, I'm probably not going to be able to win this year, given that we have someone called like Joe Bernstein or Addy, or the other ones. Like, they're amazing, and it's going to be cool to be able to be there, like, eventually. But yeah, it's really cool to see that like rise in the weight class. Like, just seeing, like, 2 years ago, like you said, like doing 805 would get you to the podium, and now like I barely got into the A group. It's insane. It's insane how the competition has risen, and it's cool to see as well that it's not just like one guy and then the rest. It's like it's everyone in the A group is like a killer. So it's cool to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think it's very cool. Like, kind of like you said there, pretty much the top 8 at least are going to be 800 and up at Worlds. That's an insane uptick from the last couple of years as well. And I think I like what you said there as well. Like, I assume the goal is really just to find the enjoyment at a higher level meet. Like, you can still enjoy it just because it's Worlds. Like, you don't need to have this insane pressure. You can go in and still have fun and find the enjoyment of competing at that level, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, I do have my ambitions to like do as well as possible. And let's say the opportunity would arise to where I can like maybe snatch a podium position or something. Like, that's still in the back of my mind. But I'm just, when the spotlight isn't on me, I want to take that time to just build a good foundation for myself, to where the only thing I can do is go in and lift, whatever else happens. And it's easier to practice that when no one's looking at you, or less people are looking at you per se.
Yeah, and I mean, I was about to say you're the youngest in the group, but I forgot how young Joe is.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a baby.
But what, you're 24, like this, you've only just moved up to the 83s, really. You're still like getting used to your new leverages. It's going to be like stepping stones, but there's no reason why you can't get back to where you were in terms of level of like winning worlds again. But you need to kind of solidify yourself, get used to being an 83, enjoy it, and kind of, yeah, just find that love again. And it's going to be really exciting to see how you get on. And I'm really like, that is one, and I'm sure I'm not alone with this. I'm pretty sure most people will say the same. That is one of the most exciting classes I think everyone's looking forward to this year. All the like, I can't believe the top 8 are 800 plus.
Yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, like you said, there's no real need to rush to the top. Like I like to think about Shell, for example. He's a great example for longevity and how long you can stay in the sport. Because I don't know exactly how long he has been competing, but I'm pretty sure he did his first meet back when he was like 19, 20 something.
I'm gonna look it up. His first meet was 2007 when he was, I don't even know, he was a junior, but I can't do that maths. Yeah, first meet was 2007.
Yeah, so that's going to be, wait, how many years will that be? That would be,
I didn't want to be the one to try the maths.
Is it 18? No, wait, am I off?
18.
18. So he's been through more than 4 World Games cycles. That just speaks for itself. Like I've been competing since 2017. That is a while, of course, or 2018. Sorry, that's a while. But he had been competing for 11 years up until that point, and only up until like last 1 or 2 years he had like got that recognition within like the classic space. Like of course he did a lot on the equipped side and all that, but still it takes a lot of time to get to that top pinnacle point of powerlifting, and it's probably going to get even harder from here. But you know, there's no need to be in a rush either. Like, you know, he's competed for 18 years.
So I was going to say, I also think when people rush it, that's when they do burn out so much quicker. Like if you were someone that had that mindset of, okay, well, I've won worlds, I now have to win every single year, you're not giving yourself a chance to breathe, to adapt, to just enjoy the sport and get to your top level. You're probably more likely to quit than just continue working. Yeah,
absolutely. And I do think that was the case for me. I'd say like I like beforehand I had the ambition of becoming the best, but I didn't really think about when it would happen. But when it actually had happened, I was like, if I do anything less than this, I'm worse. And that pressure, it can eat you up. It can be so hard on you. So just letting go, like I think it's good to have ambitions. And I say this to a lot of my athletes who are young and hungry and want to become the best themselves. It's good to have ambitions, but don't have a timeline.
Yeah.
Let it happen when it happens. Like you can't control that. It's not like you're going against, like, it's not like a 1 versus 1 type of sport. This is like you go in and do your thing, and then you wait for the other person to do their thing, and you see where that ends up. You can't have like a direct impact on what other people do. So I think that's just good to have in the back of your mind. Yeah, I completely agree. And again, that's another really important message. And I do think more people are speaking about that now as well. Like even someone like Joe Borenstein and yourself, like you're so young when you're doing these things, but you've been around a long time already. Like a lot of people in this sport haven't been around since even before 2021. Like a lot of the lifters now started around that time. Whereas like you said, 2017 for yourself, I can't remember when Joe started, but I know he's been around quite a long time as well. And and you've still got so much longer to go too. Like if you want to, there's no reason why you can't still be competitive in 10 years time. Like Shell's late 30s, I think. You're early 20s. I'm going to call you early 20s because you're only a couple of years younger than me and it makes me feel younger. We're not going to say mid 20s yet. But yeah, like you're early 20s. Like you've got so much time to just keep chipping away at your total and keep progressing. You can't control the rate of progression of anyone else. Some young junior might come along and
well, Joe, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
But you also don't know how long he's going to be around either. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen, or like he might have an injury that takes him out for a while. Obviously, we all hope he doesn't, but you don't know what's going to happen, and you might suddenly have this surge at some point. If you just keep ticking all the right boxes, you have no idea where you could end up. And we also don't know, like, these people that have these huge surges in strength, usually there is a bit of a plateau for a while, and that's when you see things leveling out. Like, even I think Taylor is a good example. When he was a 74, like, obviously he had a lot of injuries and stuff he was dealing with, but he was like in that mid 800 range, and then he was struggling to hit even 800 as a 74 for a while. Like, you don't know if that's going to happen. It just depends on what happens on that one day of competition.
Yeah, exactly. Anything can happen on competition day, and like, although the top guys in the 83s do look like they're coming in great shape, and I hope they do as well. But again, you never know what can happen, and that's the great thing with sports. Like, nothing is predictable. Any day could be your day.
You know, those top 6 ranked above you might all miss weight. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
But no, it's going to be a really good year, and I'm really excited to see how you get on, and it's going to be good to see you back on the world stage. And I'm glad you made the A group as well. Like, obviously you said as well that 805 wasn't peaked. I didn't miss you saying that, so excited to see what you do peaked. I don't know if you've got anything else kind of you want to shout out that's coming up. Obviously we've shouted out your coaching, but you can plug that again, or anything else going on before we wrap up.
No, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I do have spots open if people are interested. You can check out my website, or just shoot me a message if you're unsure, or if you're just like curious. I'll be happy to explain it to you, and we'll see if we're a good match. But other than that, I mean, it's going to be great to be back on the international stage. I think I said this on my social media as well prior. Like, I see this meet as something as of a dedication to, or like in honor of people who struggle with mental health, because I've been there. So to anyone listening who's struggling right now, like, you're not alone. Even if you're like, you feel like you're on top of the world, you have won everything that you wanted, life can still be very challenging, and it's about the way that we handle those situations and continue to move forward that defines us who we are. So yeah, to anyone out listening, just keep fighting and stay positive.
I think that's a really lovely message to end on, and I'm really grateful as well that you obviously spoke about that all on here too. And I'm sure a lot of people listening will also be glad to just hear you talking about it so openly. And I think it's such an important message just to share around. So thank you.
Of course.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been great chatting to you.
Thank you.